Welcome in, World Cup date, June 20th, recapping the final day of group play at the World Cup in France. 4 games today, a lot of drama, a lot of chaos, a good number of goals. It was an interesting day in both groups that finished up. Group E saw the Netherlands win the group with a 2-1 win over Canada. Cameroon with a really late stoppage time goal, 95th minute, to beat New Zealand 2-1. That sealed their spot in the round of 16. That meant Chile had one more chance to get in. They had to win by 3 in the afternoon match over Thailand. They won by 2, and they hit the crossbar on a penalty late. And the United States won their group with the 2-0 win over Sweden after an early goal. There's a lot to get into. Jason Longshore, Jessica Sharman with you today. Let's go chronological. Let's start with Group E. And we said coming into the day that the Netherlands were one of those teams that could be a contender, but they needed to show it. Did they show enough today?
I think they showed enough that they are a contender to keep going. I don't think they showed enough that they're a genuine contender for the actual championship. They scored some good goals. They played nice. But for me, the fact they couldn't hold the lead after they scored the first goal and they conceded a few minutes afterwards, that's not a championship winning side for me. Those are the times where you show your real talent because you're most vulnerable as soon as you score a goal. And I think the Netherlands showed that, and they succumbed to Canada's pressure.
Here's what I liked, though. After that, they were strong enough to go get the winner, and they didn't settle because they were in a position, even with the draw, they were winning the group. They were going to go through. They didn't have to go find a winner. I like that they did, and I like that they did this win 2-1 in a game where they didn't have a ton of chances. They had 8 shots. They had 2 on target. 48% of the possession. I mean, this is an attack-minded team that really wasn't able to break through Canada very much, a strong defensive team. But they found a result, and I do feel better about the Dutch. I don't put them at the top of my power rankings out of the final 16, but they're maybe at the bottom of the A group or the top of the B group.
Mm-hmm. They're sort of in that mix that if they had a great game, they could be one of those that upset one of the leads if they had a great day.
Yeah, and they're looking like where they are in the bracket. They will play if they get past Japan, which won't be easy. That'll be another good test for the Netherlands. They'll play the winner of Italy and China, and that's kind of a referendum game for both Italy and the Netherlands if they get through. Winner of that will, if everything goes according to plan, see Germany in a semifinal. And
that's where you see them falling, honestly.
Right.
For me.
Yeah, either one. I would agree. I think Germany is a better team than the Netherlands. I think the United States is a better team than the Netherlands. I think France and England are both better teams than the Netherlands. And maybe the biggest surprise to me is I thought Australia would clearly be in the A group. I think the Dutch are ahead of Australia at this stage of the tournament.
And I would agree with you there. I think Australia's defensive laps are just too much. I think the Netherlands is slightly tighter at the back than Australia. With Australia, you're always thinking they're going to need to outscore their opponents. They're always going to have to be scoring 2-3 goals a game because they're just not going to keep a shutout against the strong teams.
The other game in the group was crazy back and forth. Cameroon gets the goal, and both teams had a shot to go through at the start of this. Cameroon gets a goal in the 57th minute. Ajara Enchelt gets the lead. That puts Cameroon into a spot where they would be level with Nigeria but have the advantage on fair play points. I mean, I had a tally of yellow cards on my table here watching the matches like, okay, wait a minute. They're 3 points ahead on fair play. If they pick up more yellows, they're in trouble.
Can you imagine being the player that got like a dissent or a time wasting call in the last minute and you just spoiled the fair play points? That's crazy.
It was at that stage because they were level with Nigeria on goal differential. They were level with them on goals scored, and in fair play points was the next one. So then it was an own goal, and it was an awful own goal.
Oh, it's horrible to watch. It's painful.
It's pain. You can see the hopes for the next round just fading on the look of the defender's face. Aurel Awona, 80th minute, just a completely shanked clearance. But then Enshout in the 95th minute breaks through, and it's a 5-on-2 for Cameroon. I mean, credit to New Zealand for going for it at that point, because why not? You had to. But Cameroon breaks through, and Enshout with the cutback to lose one of the defenders, and then the composure to finish. I mean, it's maybe goal of the tournament right now for what it means.
And for what it showed of them, because particularly the way they went into the tie with an own goal, it's easy to just think that it is not your day, it is not your tournament when such a crazy own goal happens. But they reacted in the best possible way. And honestly, that's why, as an England fan, and it looks like that's who we're facing, that's something you have to be wary of, because they have a never say die attitude. And they know how to respond, and they're never going to give up until the very end. So that was an exciting one, and what a goal that meant. And I'm sure her teammates going to be thanking her.
Absolutely. It was a weird finish because that was 95th minute. I think the goal was actually hitting the back of the net at like 94-48. It was 5 minutes of stoppage time. So there wasn't going to be much stoppage time added for New Zealand to kick off. But after the goal, it looked like, and the broadcast, I have no idea what was going on. This was a match where the commentators on Fox were in Los Angeles, not in the stadium.
I think that's so weird that they do that. The
tough. Calling
from far away, you can't see everything on a TV. That means you have just as much of a view as the people watching the game.
Yeah, it's difficult. It sometimes is a necessity, and in this situation, even in situations in Russia last year on the Men's World Cup, you had broadcasts, and it wasn't just United States broadcasts, that sometimes instead of being in the stadium, and it was down to space in that tournament, you had broadcasters from like a World Broadcast Center, I believe, in Moscow. It's so hard to call a game effectively from there, and I mean, I'm watching the highlight reel back right now, and the goal scorer, Enshout, was down for a little while after the celebration and really did not look right. And then they cut back as New Zealand's getting ready to kick off, and there's a Cameroon player on a stretcher off the field, and another Cameroon player flat on her back. I couldn't tell if she was passed out or not.
But did this happen in the mix of the celebrations?
Afterwards, it was after all of that. You could see Cameroon's players and a lot of their technical staff to the left of their technical area, and there's a player on the stretcher and another player down on the field, and the referee didn't restart the match, just blew the final whistle. Bizarre situation. The player who was down on the field, it looked like they were trying to like fan her face.
Like she passed out from exhaustion or something?
Yeah, that's what it looked like. And the broadcaster, the commentators for Fox were not in the stadium, so they couldn't really tell what was going on. They're trying to guess, and it was very difficult for them. And then the U.S. broadcast was next, the U.S. game, so you're going to the pregame immediately. I never heard anything as to what happened, and I hope everybody's okay.
Yeah. I mean, because they've got a big game ahead. I don't know. Let's hope it was just surprise, or maybe even a little bit of gamesmanship. We'll hope that they convince the referee to blow the whistle early. But we've seen that happen a couple of times with extra time being something that the referees don't seem to be stopping their watches for as long as possible. And that's not fair on the other team. Now, even if it was only a minute, there's not that much New Zealand could have done, but they deserved that last-ditch chance. We saw it in the Champions League semi-finals when Ajax conceded that, or rather, not Champions League, Europa League, when Ajax conceded that last-minute goal. They had an opportunity to, take from the kickoff, have everyone charge forward, and all it takes is a dodgy defender or a lack of concentration, and you still have that last opportunity on goal. And if I'm from New Zealand, I'm disappointed the referee cuts it short. And it seems to be a bit of a common thread here where, we're seeing a lot of high numbers in stoppage time, mainly due to VAR. We're seeing a lot of 7s, 8s, 9s. Those 7s, 8s, and 9s have to happen, even if it becomes an 100-minute soccer game, which is what a lot of these are now. Because at the end of the day, we deserve 90 minutes on the field to see who the better team is.
Yeah, I think New Zealand deserved a chance to kick off, and maybe, by the clock, it would have been 12 seconds at that point, but that's enough time for a kickoff and send it long and see what happens. You never know. I was a little surprised the kickoff didn't happen. This is the first time in FIFA Women's World Cup history that 2 African nations advanced from group play. Now, at this stage, that wasn't confirmed. Cameroon was in, Nigeria was on the bubble, going into the match with Chile and Thailand, and Chile has to win by 3.
Which you would have thought they would have done. That's what I'm going to say. Before the game, I think I told you I thought it was going to be a 4-1, 5-1 game because I saw Thailand maybe getting a goal. But, their defense have worked hard. They've definitely improved substantially throughout the tournament. But you always thought that a team was going to score goals on them. But fair credit to Thailand, and what a story that is that they managed to keep it. And from the little parts I've seen, they looked so much more organized today, and they came out and they battled hard. And I think that just goes to show that Thailand's not a terrible nation. They just played against 2 really good nations that have far more financial support.
Absolutely. And Chile doesn't even have as much financial support as they should have. Mm-hmm. But this was a great first tournament at the World Cup for Chile, I think, even with this, disappointment not getting through. And the whole situation on the potential third goal, it was a clearance off the line after the goalkeeper came out. And the goalkeeper was late and came out with her right leg exposed, studs up, into the attacker after the attacker had played it over her head. I would have been okay if there was a no call, but this is one that went to VAR, and it's not a bad call. It's a dangerous challenge from the goalkeeper. So you're thinking at this stage, okay, ball's cleared off the line. Okay, but Chile gets a penalty. Here it is. This is it. And it's off the bar.
And it's so you have to feel bad for the woman that takes that because you've had the whole weight of a nation and expectation on you. And they would have known going into the game. They had the advantage as far as I'm concerned. You have the advantage when you know what score you have to get. And they would have known that this was the goal. And honestly, that's a lot of pressure on one person's shoulders. And we've seen a lot of penalties missed or saved in this tournament, at least the first time round. And it looked like she succumbed to that pressure again. And I bet she was praying that the goalkeeper had come off her line. But again, I saw the replay and she was definitely on her line for that one. So good job, goalkeeper.
She was not moving off of that line. And she had just received a yellow for the challenge. So she would have been
oh my God. I'm waiting for that to happen. I'm waiting for a goalkeeper to get the second yellow from that because that is a joke as far as I'm concerned.
I have a bad feeling it's going to happen in a shootout now that we're in the knockout rounds. And, Twitter and social media
what would happen?
Melt down.
Okay, what would happen if a goalkeeper comes off their line twice in a penalty shootout?
Sent off.
And then
Red
a field player has to go in goal, right? Because you can't put a substitute in.
Nope. It would be insane.
You know what, though? With penalties, I think a field player almost sometimes has as good a chance of just guessing and flinging themselves,
Go ask Leandro Gonzalez Perez. That's why he does those every day after training. And
I thought Remedy does penalties too. Remedy I've seen in goal as well.
Yeah, he is. I think they have a little ongoing competition. From what I hear, LGP is the better goalkeeper.
Oh, I've seen Remedy doing some shot stopping, and he's got some decent technique too.
I think there's a lot of trash talking on those. Couple things about Thailand and Chile before we move on to the U.S. Thailand had a couple shots on target. They didn't have much of the ball here. Chile had 30 shots, 5 on target, 66% of the ball. I wanted to mention a tweet from Luis Miguel Echegaray, who writes for Sports Illustrated. Chilean, covers the South American game a lot, and I thought he nailed it. He said, well done, Argentina and Chile. He said, with their heads held high because what they did and continue to do is more than a match. It's more than a tournament. You've inspired so many, so keep fighting the fight. And please, at Argentina's federation and at Chile's federation, support your women.
That's so important, and I hope that gets the sort of support that it deserves in terms of going viral or making a difference, because oftentimes it's unfortunate, but these women can ask and ask, but until they're backed by bigger powers or until the federations are made to look bad, then they don't really care what's going on behind closed doors until it's made public.
And this group's a prime example of that, with Chile and Thailand on one side of the group without much support from their federation. Thailand luckily has a sponsor who takes it upon herself to support the women in that program. You have the United States and Sweden, both extremely well supported in terms of both, financials, even though there are some questions there, but
comparatively,
comparatively, it's not even close.
I understand the complaints with the U.S. women, obviously, in terms of equal pay, but when you compare their plight to the plight of a team like Thailand or Chile or Argentina, then it's not the same battle. I heard a great interview with the England team, who clearly understand how much the FA does for them, and that's something I'm proud of for coming from England, because as much as 15, 20 years ago, the women were under-supported. Now, I would say it's the best supported nation, pretty much.
It's right there. It's right there with the best ones, and it shows. And that's when you look across the round of 16, that is the majority of the teams that are left are ones that are well supported. U.S. and Sweden, United States gets an early goal, third-minute goal from Lindsey Horan. They get an own goal, maybe a little harsh on the own goal decision, Tobin Heath with the shot, but it came after, I thought, a really questionable decision. Christina Unkel, the rules analyst for Fox, immediately came in and said, no, this is like the Australia-Brazil situation.
No, it's not.
I didn't think it was either.
No, I was, and I've gone on a bit of Twitter rage about this decision, but I think they're completely different. I didn't really like the Sam Kerr call. I think you and I had a few disagreements on that one. I thought that was still active in my mind because the ball's not even played in, and I don't think the defender makes a hash of the clearance. But when you look at Lloyd, she is far more active in that play than Kerr by the definition. She is challenging for the ball, even if she doesn't make contact with it. And another interesting thing is that the reason Heath is so open is because there's two players in the middle marking Lloyd's run. So you have to wonder whether Lloyd, if Heath would have ever got the ball if Lloyd hadn't been there. And then the biggest one for me, though, is there is no way, because the defender made a bit of a hash of the clearance. So it was a bit of a slicer, get the ball out of there, if in doubt, kick it out style clearance that landed at Heath's feet. If there is no forward there, that defender is so calm. She takes that ball down. She looks to play it out the back, or maybe even the keeper comes for it if it's not under pressure. And for me, for those exact reasons, she is active in that play. And the fact that she made a deliberate challenge on the ball, I just don't understand how the referee can look at it so many times and think she didn't impact the play.
I agree. When I saw it live and they showed the first replay, I'm like, that's coming back. Lloyd is offside and she's challenging. Jason Zimmerman chimed in on Twitter when I tweeted something about it, and I think he's reading it the right way completely. He says, I actually think the difference was that the defender who was originally marking Carly when she was off wasn't the one to play the ball. And that's true. Mm-hmm. There was a defender who was there with Carly Lloyd, and Jason Zimmerman said that Carly's challenge wasn't really a challenge, not one that impacted the defender's play of the ball. That's where I disagree. I think you do hear those footsteps coming from behind you, and it impacts maybe not in, and this is where you get into definitions, maybe not in the sense of somebody pressuring a player in front of them, and it's obvious that they're impacting their play. This is one where I think what you said is dead on. Defender, if there's no pressure, is going to settle that and not play it the way she tried to. You hear the footsteps, you know you have pressure coming from behind you, so you make a decision to play in the manner that she did, and she misplayed it. And I think that's down to Lloyd's activity challenging the play.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And just a point on Twitter, I don't trust anyone that uses offsides plural anyway.
Oh, it happens sometimes. Sometimes it's an accident. It does happen.
Oh, the sound of it just doesn't sit well in my stomach. But I've heard the argument that the defender contacted the ball on the cross through. But for me, is the rule still that it has to be a deliberate play on the ball by the defender, right?
Now, that would be a different conversation. And I didn't see that if it did, and I haven't heard that one. But if the initial cross coming through is intentionally played by the defender in front of, was it Rapinoe who made the cross?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
If it's Rapinoe making the cross and she's being challenged and that defender deflects the ball, then yes, that would negate Lloyd being offside. That would be kind of like, and not exactly, but kind of like the Ike Opara header that played Joseph onside.
Mm-hmm. But if it's a deflection offer,
it's still
like
playing it. It's still attempting to play it, and that's where you have to judge intent. And that's where.
But if it's more,
really
if she's
tricky.
if she stood square to the ball and the ball hits her and then deflects it, that's not a deliberate play on the ball.
Most referees would say no, and that was. And if you're not an Atlanta United fan, you're probably wondering some of the citations that we're giving. But we've had some experience with this here in Atlanta, unfortunately. And there was a game in 2018 early where there was a play with a defender who blocked a cross, and that looked like it should have made Joseph Martinez onside, and a goal was scored. It was called back according to VAR. And in the post-match where a pool reporter can ask the referee a question, and they submit it in writing, and the referee writes back an answer, the referee said that the defender did not actively try to play the ball, that their foot was planted, just like you said. If they just stood there and it went off of them, that would not be considered offside. I feel like the referee was wrong in that case. But, yeah, if the defender's just standing there, you could say, well, they didn't do it intentionally.
Now, I don't remember any defensive contact or
either.
play on it.
Yeah,
it's just something that someone has tweeted me, so I'm wondering how accurate that is. I would like to go back and look at it. Exactly. Yeah. But for me, it didn't. And for me, it's a really hard one because, look, Sweden weren't that bad. Sweden had chances, and the U.S. looked shaky at the back at times. And I think if you stay at 1-0, Sweden feels more in that game and maybe comes out a little bit more, and all it takes is one goal then to get back in the game. So it was a hard one, and it was sort of a nail in Sweden's coffin because not only did they concede a goal right at the beginning of the game, they then conceded a goal right at the beginning of the second half, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
It completely changes the game. If that one is called back, it completely changes the game in every sense. Because, yeah, I do think Sweden then is going to be a little more expansive. But, you know, we've talked about the conversation, but it doesn't look like it was deflected. I'm looking back at it now. I don't think there was any touch before that. We've talked about it. Megan Klingenberg, former U.S. women's national team player, said that she was outraged about the call. It has an impact. Let's talk about the game as a whole. United States with 16 shots on the night, 7 for Sweden. Shots on target, 4 for the U.S., 2 for Sweden.
Which is a terrible conversion rate for the U.S., honestly,
it is.
With their quality of forwards.
A lot of shots from distance. And that's where you look at the possession number, 63% for the United States. I think there's a potential flaw in the way the United States attacks that worries me against good backlines and strong, organized teams. Their creativity is out wide. It's Tobin Heath and Megan Rapinoe. It's kind of a 6 and 2 box-to-box midfielders in the middle of the park, although Rose Lavelle could be the one to change it because Rose Lavelle is very good on the dribble, looked good tonight. When she can create penetration centrally, the U.S. looks so much better in the attack because if your creators are out wide, you can negate that a little bit more because Alex Morgan's not the forward that you're trying to just blast crosses into and let her go up and win them.
It's ineffective.
It is.
I think that's the issue. They're playing a style which doesn't suit the actual target forward. She's not a big target forward that's going to, nip in against stronger defenders. And I think the reason there hasn't been this worry in the past is because the defenders they've been playing against haven't been the best. Against Thailand, you were going to win any cross put into the air. But when you face a better defensive team with larger, more sizable players, France comes to mind immediately, you're not going to beat a defender like Renard in the air when she's 6 foot whatever.
No, and I don't know what plan B is. And that what sets it up for me is Rose Lavelle has to continue to improve, and I think she has every match so far in this tournament. Samantha Mewis has to play. I don't know what Jill Ellis is going to do, but I don't think you can pull Mewis from this team. And then it's hard to pull Horan as well. So what do you do in the midfield when Julie Ertz is there? And she says, and she said it to Grant Wall from Sports Illustrated after the match today, she'll be ready for Spain. I don't know what you do. I do think the one solution that we've seen off the bench now is Kristen Press coming into one of those attacking midfield roles, and she's a little bit more of a playmaker and can combine. But I do worry against good defenses what this is going to look like, because I think the U.S. can be found out in their attack, even though it's really strong.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and that would be my concern with the U.S. Yes, they've had some good performances. Yes, they're 3-0. They haven't conceded a goal. That's all very nice, but it just doesn't, for me, it's just not good enough. And I think with the U.S. women's national team, yes, fantastic team. Yes, record breaking, but it's just not looking that great for me when you're playing against stronger sides. There are some issues. There are defensive issues. The goalkeeper concerned me a little bit today. There were two instances when the goalkeeper distributed the ball out and tried to find a checking in player in the middle, but turned the ball over immediately. There are a couple of crosses that concern me. She's a fantastic shot stopper, but when it comes to reading the ball in the air, I don't think it's good enough.
We're going to get into it more tomorrow when we're going to do a separate pod to completely preview the round of 16. But United States now will face Spain. Spain so far in the 3 matches at the tournament, they've been weak in the attack, weaker than we expected coming in. But they've been strong in possession, and they have had 73%, 64%, and 64% of the possession in their 3 games. And you go back to the match in January that the U.S. won 1-0, Spain had more of the possession there too. They had 52% of the possession against the United States. That's going to be a different type of match for the U.S.
Yeah, and we've seen them play Spain before. It was only 1-0 when they played them in the World Cup warm-ups, if I remember correctly. Yep. And I think that they're going to... Look, I still think the U.S. is going to win, but I think it's going to be a wake-up call, because when they're facing stronger oppositions, I was a little bit disappointed with Sweden defensively. I thought they possessed a few challenges for the U.S. up top, but I just am excited to see, and I really hope U.S. proves me wrong, because I want them to do well. I think they have some great individual players, but there's just something a little bit off tactically as well, without getting into that whole, shenanigans with Ellis. But I just don't know if the wing play style, yes, you have 2 fantastic creative wingers, but even if they're putting in the best service week in, week out, if you don't have the person on the end of it, what's the point of that service?
Yeah, I want to see more of Heath and Rapinoe cutting inside when that wing play is ineffective. And I think that's another key. If they can become more of those inverted wingers when they need to, and they both have the ability to cut in. Rapinoe with her right foot can cut in and shoot. Yeah. Tobin Heath can do whatever she wants with the ball at her feet.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's about. Let's hope they adapt and do enough.
Yeah, that's what it's going to take.
But it'll be good for them. I think it's actually a blessing in disguise that they're facing a team that isn't, Spain's a strong side, not an unbelievable side. And I think the U.S. needs that, because right now the games have just been a little bit too easy for them.
Yeah, Sweden came in with 7 changes from their lineup against Thailand, and it was pretty consistent, I think, with 1 change from their opener against Chile. They'll go into the round of 16. They already knew they were going in, and maybe they decided to just rotate and kind of punt on this one, and that's been some of the talk out of the Swedish press. They'll go in and play Canada in the round of 16. We're going to break down all 8 matches in the round of 16 tomorrow, but here's your lineup for them. In the bracket, Norway and Australia. The winner of that plays the winner of England and Cameroon. Next part of the bracket, France plays Brazil. United States plays Spain. Those winners play each other. Oh. Italy plays China. Netherlands plays Japan. Those winners play one another. And then at the bottom of the bracket, Germany and Nigeria, who got in after that crossbar challenge shot from Chile. Nigeria gets in, and I tweeted a video earlier of them celebrating in the hotel at that final whistle, which was pretty cool. They play Germany. Sweden plays Canada. Nigeria has less than 48 hours to get ready for that match with Germany. Kind of crazy the way the bracket worked out.
Yeah,
Some
not
really
impressed
tasty
with
matchups.
that. No, that's kind of seems a bit unfair with the rest period, but you know what? I think they're going to be very excited to come out and play, and who knows? They're the underdog, and we've seen some good underdog stories here when there's no weight on your shoulders. Sometimes you play more freely.
As good as this tournament has been, and ratings, viewership, all of it has been up from last year. In the United States, it's been up from last year, which when you go back and look at it, last year had better time slots because you were in Canada, you were in U.S. primetime for a lot of big games. So you're up compared to that. You're way up compared to the last tournament in Europe, in a European time zone. It's about to hit a whole nother level.
And it's a real compliment, like you say, about these viewing figures because of the time zones. And that's what's so impressive. The viewing figures in England are amazing, but at the end of the day, these games are pretty much in that prime time spot. So for the US to be growing, it's fantastic. And like you say, it is only going to get better. It's only going to get more competitive. Obviously, we've had a couple of lower quality teams playing. Now this is going to get more competitive than ever. And it's unpredictable. And we love that. That's what every neutral wants, and obviously I'm a neutral in 90% of the games, and I'm loving every single game that I get to watch.
We say goodbye to 8 teams from the tournament, but 16 will be battling it out now. It is a knockout bracket, and there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans. Hopefully we won't be talking as much about the referees, but I think we will be. I think that's going to happen as we get into these knockout round games.
It's okay. Every time there's a bad VAR call, we post a cute dog picture. So
I have the Laws of the Game app now installed on my phone because it seems to be a necessity to talk about soccer at this point. All right, no games tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow around the same time and break down the bracket and the 8 games, and it starts back on Saturday. So we will give you maybe our new picks based off the bracket that we have and say where we got it wrong coming in, because
everywhere.
I think all of us would like to make some revisions.
Yeah, I think I need to change my bracket completely. But you know what? I'm happy about that because that means that teams that may not have been favorites going in have really shown their improvements.
Yeah, and that's what makes for a great tournament. And I still think, and I'm going to continue to say this, I think this is a true jumping off point for the women's game around the world. And just like Luis Miguel Echegaray said about South American game, you have 2 countries from Africa making the knockout round for the first time. You have all the established powers still in it, so it's only going to go from strength to strength. This is going to be an exciting knockout stage in this tournament, the most exciting the tournament's ever seen. Can't wait for it to get started Saturday, and we'll be back tomorrow to preview the whole bracket across the board, and we'll make some new predictions too, since we all probably need to take some eraser to the original ones. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.